How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another video on how to build production ready React applications. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at testing. This section is from a course taught by Brian Holt. Shout out to Brian Holt, a software engineer that has previously worked at Netflix, Reddit, Microsoft, Snowflake, and now he's the current VP of product at SQLite Cloud. So this course, we have looked so far techniques and tools that allow us to build and write these production ready React applications. Techniques like code splitting and server-side rendering, testing and transitions, as well as tools like Tailwind, TypeScript, and Redux. So today's video, we're gonna take a look now at a quick overview of Redux, okay, as well as testing. So after all, Redux is something that back in the old days with React, we don't have a way of to store our data or app level data. So that's why we have to rely on third-party libraries such as Redux or Mops. Okay, so then React caught us as new release came out, 17 and 18. So we don't need to actually use React or Redux. It becomes superfluous to use that. So because we have something called like context, it was horrible at the beginning, but now it's better. It's a way to store this level, the app level state for that, or the app level data there. And the idea or the reason of looking Redux toolkit particularly, so toolkit is this framework around this Redux. So Redux, after all, is this state management. So by defining it a store, we can now centralize all of our data there. So this is a popular library, as well as the pattern that it uses that. And now the reason of looking at why do we use Redux, okay, is to see how it works, so you find yourself to not use it, okay. And the value proposition of Redux is that since now we can test and debug all of the different states that happen or actions that happen in our UI, we can eliminate an entire classes of bugs that will happen or that is going to have your app. So because now with Redux, we have this testable and debuggable way of looking a state transition from A to B. Now we can actually have a more deterministic way of how all of this actually changes, as well as it can help you to solve code problems, something that we're gonna talk about later. So we look at Redux. Redux Toolkit aims to be less verbose, okay? And now the anatomy of Redux is you have the Redux Toolkit, okay, which is this framework around the Redux React, which is the glue of React with Redux, this particular pattern, okay? So you can use Redux with other libraries like Angular or Vue, okay? So then we look at how you can start to define it. What is the process here? What is the mechanism of doing all of these things? So first things first, you define is your store, where inside of that you create your or configure your store. This is one way to do this. Okay, you configure your store as well as your reducers, and here is when you're going to have all of this app level state data. So for example, if you're building an e-commerce, this is where you put your product, for example, catalogs or orders, users, and you do that as slice, which is this nice, compelling bundle of code or bundles or slice where we can define all of our initial state or all of our states as well as the reducers. So to create a slide, we now need to tell to React or RTKey for sure, React toolkit. So we tell RTKey to now allow us to create a slice for us, where in there we define is a name, that is something that is going to be used internally by RTKey or by Redux specifically. It's a way to determine, hey, this slice belongs to this. This is the name of this, all of these reducer functions. So first we define is the name, then the initial state, as well as our reducers. And a reducer is just a fancy function, or it's just a fancy name to say this is a state, this is a function that receives an old state and an actions to generate a new bit of state out of that. Okay, so in there you can define is actions like set the initial value for that, or apply some transformation to that state, whether it's for changing it in a string or putting upper or lower cases, that kind of thing. Maybe reorder things here, putting that in alphabetic order or an ascending or descending order here. And now that we know how to set up a slice, this small bundle, how can we let Redux to say, hey, here I am, this is a slice, and I want you to, we want to make Redux aware of this slice. Well, by importing that to our store. And there is a particular pattern, especially with RTKey, when it comes to export your slice, that you need to indicate is the actions that you're going to export from the slice. And this is just a fancy function that what is doing behind the scenes is to say, hey, I'm going to create this function or this action that is going to return is the type, which contains the name of that action, as well as the payload. Okay, and then you're going to return your reducers, which is something that we did here. Okay, this is what you're going to use as a way to notify Redux, hey, this is a slide. Okay, good. So now how can we read out data from that or store data in there? So to store data, we use this patch, which comes from Redux. Okay, something that we're gonna see here. Hey, I want you to dispatch, or I want you to send a query. I want you to dispatch an actions or query. You can think of Redux. This is an imperfect analogy. You can think of Redux as this tiny database that you're going to dispatch actions and queries data. So the way of how you store data is by dispatching, or by using is dispatch from Redux, and then you're going to pass is the proper action that you want to do. That's great. Now how you can read data out of this? By using is something called selector. Use selector again that comes from Redux. So the thing here is that when you are going to use this selector and the function that you define there, you need to be very, very specific uh, to fetch only the bare minimum data from your store. Because what happened, this function, when something on the store changed, Redux say, oh, this changed, therefore I need to re-render this component when you use that, when you use this subscription. So if you have a bigger object, that's bad in terms of performance. So do not pull out unnecessary data and only link the bare minimum data for that. So now that we know how to pull data and how can store that data, okay, the next thing is to say, okay, how can we now do data fetching or catching for that reason? If you're using Redux, Brian Hall suggests that go for it, Redux toolkit, RTKey query for that, because things can be because things can become quite confusing, pretty straightforward, and after all, you want is to now make things as predictable as possible. Easy to test, easy to debug, easy to implement as well. So the way of how you can now define is this data fetching by using it by using it in your React or RTKey query. Sorry. Is by creating an API, this function that you are going to receive from the React toolkit query React, and we're going to see why we're getting that from that. But it's because here is when you're going to define your services with this create API function. Where now here, as we move on and as we define is our, for example, reducer path. Again, this is something that is going to be for internal consistency in Redux. Okay, hey, this reducers or all of these actions belongs to this bundle. Okay, in this case, if you wanted to perform some data fetching or catching, so that's where you define is your reducer path, as well as the base URL. Okay, something that we define here. Here you go, or the base query. Okay, fetch base query, as well as your endpoints. And here, your endpoints will RTKey query will generate custom hooks for you for your different endpoints. This is one way to do this. Okay, and also this is one of the basic example from Redux. Exactly from Redux. From Redux toolkit query. From Redux toolkit query. This is one of the simple example of this. Okay, take a look at this. Oh, what? Okay. Exactly how to set up Redux toolkit, data fetching functionality, as well as catching. So hey, welcome to the Redux toolkit query tutorial. This tutorial will briefly introduce the Redux toolkit, data fetching capability, and teach you how to start using it correctly. So again, this is how you can set up your store and API service, something that we define here. And this is something interesting because now this package is generating API endpoints, is generating hooks per our endpoints. As you can imagine here, like get Pokemon here, and as you can imagine here, you can say, okay, this is something interesting. Here is when we can define or we can define several services per endpoint. Okay, so you can talk to another service, for example, Stripe or Spotify, you name it, or Firebase for another authentication, that kind of thing, which is great. Exactly. This is most likely different from what you see in other libraries such as SWR or React Query, and there are several reasons for that. Our perspective is that much easier to keep track on how requests, caching validation, and general app configurations behave when they're all in a central location in comparison to having X number of custom hooks in different files through your application. So again, this is part of more like architecture design or project structure here. And this is how you can now notify after you create your service. You can notify Redux, hey, this is our Reducer. This is our set of actions that we want to do. This is our service here. And then adding a middleware, okay, where this is something that enables you to do catching, invalidation, polling. So here in Redux they have this concept called middleware, where this is a function that can intercept you dispatch, for example, where it can intercept something before reach to the destination. This is a concept widely used in Express application or server application, for example, Node and Express, where you can define your middleware like app.use. And this is something that is going to work. So when the server receives an incoming request, it will pass through all of these different middlewares or functions, you know. So for example, it's going to pass through the body URL encoder or the body parser or the course to detect if this request actually comes from a valid IP, or it has the proper headers, or if actually you have the proper headers. Is this an allow IP? Okay. You can also pass through the Express validator when it say, hey, when it reach or before that the authentication, hey, is this request actually is are we allowing this user to do this? Okay, by using his GWT, for example, authentication. And then if the user is authenticated, now he can access through those routes needed. Let's say I want to make a post to a product, okay, or to the user. I want to update the user profile for that. So hey, are you sending is at least the data in the type that I expected? For example, the name, is this is a string? The role, is this part of an enum or this bag of constants? The password, are we actually is in our size using bytecrypt for that? So this is a concept that comes from computer science, and now Redux is using this concept as a way to add in some feature. This is a way of how you Redux augments its capability. Okay, and one of that is by enabling catching and invalidation, the kind of thing. Okay, so far so good. And then we look at, okay, when can we use this? You may wonder. It's like, well, for that you need to define is this provider, the store, okay, in your app, in your root app level, so you can start doing that. So you can notify to your app, hey, this is the global state, okay, from Redux, and now you can have access through all of these reducers. So in your query, what you're gonna use is that query that it output here. For example, here, you're gonna use this, and then you're going to pass now the property it needs to query that data. Okay, for example, in this case is the name. So you're going to pass is the name as a string. And as you can see, is that. You're going to pass is the name for that. And this custom hooks generated by RTKey query comes from, it gives you some convenience, some compelling methods, such as data, some convenient or some compelling features for handling data loading in your components, for managing UI state, for example, data, error, and its loading. Okay, that's something very, very interesting, and I appreciate that completely. So you can also do that with React Query, okay, where with React Query you say, hey, here's a key to catch that, here is the URL, here is the refetch method. That's very, very, very interesting. That's very, very, very interesting. So this is just to briefly explain about what we did here. Okay, that's exactly what we did here. And some example of what you can do here with middleware. For example, you want to transform an object into another object here, and then dispatch that object. Or for example, if you're allowing Redux to work with observables, you want us to intercept that observable, do something about it, and then dispatch an action to the store. So that's quite interesting here. And as you can see here, this is our this is our service. Okay, this is our service. Okay, so far so good. Here we're defining is using is a custom hook for that, like so, right? And one of the great things of these custom hooks, by defining them in their own files, is that it makes them easy to test. So the TLDR here with Redux, okay, is that Redux or RTKey query is good for data loading and catching, okay, and also it provides you a convenient and a compelling way to enhance your service and endpoints. However, when it comes to do some server-side rendering or sync the data from the server to the, for example, syncing data or syncing data or updating data from the server, there are better alternatives like React Query. And also, React Query is way much more compelling about how you can catch data. That's one of the reasons here. And then I look at Redux DevTool, which the the compelling thing about Redux is that now we can do some time travel debugging, and I have seen people working with Redux DevTool, where you can is look at all of the different state that was defined there, okay, or all of the different action that is dispatching. You can do time travel debugging. You can see the diff, you can see the action, the state. It also generates some tests. Might be sometimes is good or not. You can also indicate which type of diff you want to emit, whether it's Jasmine or Alva. There are other features. And one of the use cases that is, again, is the most compelling use case here again is I have seen people using Redux DevTool or RTKey or Redux, okay, and connect that to any error logging service like TrackGX or Sentry, and when something goes wrong, that output is dumped to their service, so you can take that and dump it into your React DevTool and see and yeah, and dump it into your React DevTool. So you're basically time travel through the user crashing your application, and that's pretty compelling. That's pretty compelling. So now, because we were talking about testing and that kind of thing, so the reason of being very good at testing here and understand what are we doing with our tests and actually write our tests specifically with Vitest. Jasmine is the way how we can create our tests, where Jess is inspired by Jasmine. Is initially become as a Facebook project. Now it is an open source, which is something that I like. Then came here Vitest, which is the next spiritual successor of Jess. And the thing here is that especially when you're looking your tests and when you're writing tests, which is something that a lot of developers love to do, I'm joking, is that I'm gonna be very good at writing tests because I don't want to like writing tests, especially. So my least favorite thing, not to mention that I hate that. So the least favorite thing is flaggy tests. If something fails, it then well better be telling me something or shouldn't have failed. And here is where you can detect is the pain points, the feeling of the feeling on the face of Ryan Hall when he said that. So that's the least favorite thing. So the least favorite thing is flaggy tests, because if something failed, it damn well better tell me something, or shouldn't have failed. Because I hate tests that waste my time, and I get it because the value or the assets, the greatest assets or the most important resource that a developer has is their time, and not only developers but also anyone, high value people or not, is their time. Okay. So here we're gonna look at how is the Brian Holt testing methodology, which is let's write core small test. Oh no. Let's write. Yeah, let's write a core small test. Okay, let's write a core small test that tells you something that actually describe a user story. Mm-hmm. That's that describe a user story. I think this is the value proposition of it. I'll be right back. And here we are. We are back. All right, last section. Buckle up. I really love that sentence. Buckle up. Buckle up. What is buckle? A flat. Buckle. Okay, buckle. Mm-hmm. That buckle. Okay, abrocharse. Interesting. Abrochense los cinturones. Buckle up. I love it. I love it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the reason of using Vitest is that, yeah, and the reason of using Vitest is that it's very compelling, since we don't need to have something else, because after all, Vitest, which is the same person who wrote Vit, they want us to integrate, to make the development and testing pipeline into, to integrate the development and the testing into one single pipeline. Okay, so there is no need to actually rely on a model bundler for your development and to generate outputs or production builds, and then rely on other tools to running tests and that kind of thing. So they want us to integrate those two stages into one pipeline. In this case, into one dev server, Vit. Okay, a dev server and a model bundler and a test environment with Vitest. That's pretty compelling. Totally. Mm-hmm. That's pretty compelling, by the way. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty compelling. Okay. Good. So,
This one yet? I'm just kidding, it's not. TypeScript is made by the same people that make Vite. I think it's probably in the name that you probably guessed that, but they are. /React
okay.
on the 14-con, the last version. A fun side note is that Jest used to be a Facebook product, right? They
Font size. Font size. Yes, used to be a Facebook product. Okay. Yeah, font size. Yes, used to be a Facebook product that now is open source, which I love it. And then which Jest is based on Jasmine, and Vitest is based on Jasmine. So as you can see here, there is a progression here. So we don't invent things out of the thin air. And we're going to look at the setup or the anatomy of this test. The anatomy of this test. Which is setup React testing library and Vitest. Setup React testing library and Vitest.
To test React applications. And now Jest is actually officially an OpenJS project. So it's no longer a Facebook project. It's actually a full-on open source, community governed kind of project, which makes me like Jest all the more. Okay, so we're on a brand new copy of Adopt Me on the 14-context, and we're going to be using Vitest. So I want you to come in and say npm install -D Vitest at 0.24.3, and then at testing-library/react at 13.4.0.
All right. So here we're going to see some couple things going on here. So first is the Vitest. Okay, so Vitest. So Vitest is this spiritual successor of Jest, which it started as a Facebook product to test React applications, inspired in Jasmine, and now they become a open source, community governed, which is something that I love, library. So this is Vitest, okay? All right. And the other is the testing library in React, okay? In testing library, it comes with some convenience helper functions to with React. Is React testing library built on top of DOM testing library, okay, by adding APIs for working with React components. Exactly. So this is a nice little help. So it adds some helper functions that allows to test our React components. There you go. So we got Vitest as well as the React testing library. Okay, you should put it here, as well as here. There you got it. All right, here we go. So, as we can imagine, is this. All right. So, in our particular case, we're going to install this specific version because this is what works with this project. And actually, let me have the feeling to write this. So, npm install is as a development dependency Vitest and the version Vitest at 0.24.3. So major version, minor version, and patch and bug fix. Testing library here. Okay, so test. The other is testing library here. Okay, with React. Okay, because we have to test some nice. We want to test is React components, which is using the 13.4, 13.4.0. All right. Okay. Okay. All right.
testing-library/react at 13.4.0. I guess it's worth mentioning that Vitest is made by the same people that make Vite. I think it's probably in the name that you probably guessed that, but they are. And Vite and Vitest were made for Vue initially, right? But they work just as well for React. So I have no problems endorsing Vitest as a perfectly good way of doing React testing. Let's talk a second about testing library. Testing library was meant to replace something called enzyme.
Testing library was meant to replace something called enzyme. So enzyme is not any here. Test. So enzyme here, exactly, upgrading from MCT or React 16 less. Enzyme API is meant to be intuitive and flexible by mimicking the jQuery API for DOM manipulation and traversal. That's very, very interesting here, and the future of this. But it seems like enzyme is no longer being something used. It's more like in maintaining mode, enzyme, and now we got something like testing library. Like so, for React. As you can see, it's used by 20,000 K people and contributors. Okay. Even though it is endorsed by Kenzie Dot. Okay. Testing JavaScript account. Learn the smart, efficient way to test any JavaScript application. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. You want to write maintainable tests for your React components. As part of this goal, you want to use tests to avoid including implementation details of your component and rather focus on making your tests to give you confidence to which they are intended about the user story. As part of this, you want to test base to be maintainable in the long run, so refactors on your components change to implementation but not functionality. don't break your test and slow you and your team down. And there's some guidelines here that you can use it. So King C dot here. Okay, that's quite interesting. Oh my god, okay. Abramov. Interesting. Completely, bro. Completely, bro. Mm-hmm. Very, 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 very interesting, by the way. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. It's like very, very, very interesting. Oh my god. Simply and complete React DOM test utility. Test utility that encourage good testing practice. Mm-hmm. Okay, enzyme. Mm-hmm. Enzyme. That's one of the reasons why you must pay for your mentors.
If you've been writing React long enough, or if you've taken this class previously, you've used Enzyme. That was made by Airbnb as like a bunch of testing helpers for testing React.
Okay, enzyme. That was made by Airbnb as like a bunch of testing helpers, as bunch of helper testing, or as bunch of helper, as like a bunch of as yeah as like a bunch of helper testing, as a bunch of testing helpers,
React projects.
Mm-hmm. For React projects.
It's a pain in the butt. It's a huge pain in the butt, and I'm very glad that it's gone.
Oh my god. It's a pain in the butt. It's a huge pain in the butt that I'm glad is gone.
Thank you to all the people that made it. It was better than nothing, which is what we had before.
Thanks to the people that made it. It is better than nothing, which is something that we didn't, that which is something, okay, which is something that we have before. It's better than nothing, which is something that we, yeah, it's better than nothing, which is something that we have before, we had, which is something that we had before.
Let's talk a second about testing library. Testing library was meant to replace something called Enzyme helpers for testing React projects. It's a pain in the butt. It's a huge pain in the butt, and I'm very glad that it's gone. Thank you to all the people that made it. It was better than nothing, which is what we had before. But testing library is basically better in every single way. It's less flaky, it's easier to use, it's faster.
Okay. It is less flaky, better to use. It is faster because now it doesn't rely on GSDOM. It's relying on Happy DOM, which is an APIs, a more lightweight DOM API, which is not a replacement for a real browser.
All the good things, testing library. It's a bunch of helper functions for testing React applications. You do not use Vitest. Sorry, you do not use Enzyme with testing library. They are mutually exclusive. One more thing I need you to install: npm install -D.
So you don't use Enzyme with testing library. They are mutually exclusive.
Sorry, you do not use Enzyme with testing library. They are mutually exclusive. One more thing I need you to install: npm install -D Happy DOM. And we're going to do Happy DOM at 7.6.0.
Another thing to install is Happy DOM. npm install let me put it here, and now followed by here is the Happy DOM. In this particular version, Happy DOM, which is the environment where we're going to run our test or React component test. 7 in our case at 7.6.0.
Many of you probably have heard of JS DOM. It's like a node implementation of the DOM.
Many of you and myself many of you have heard about GSDOM, which is a node implementation, just like a node implementation of Node. Okay, it is like a DOM implementation. It's like a node, exactly. It's like a node implementation of the DOM. Makes sense.
We can use it to test browser things without ever having to spin up a browser, which is
exactly. We can.
Many of you probably have heard of JS DOM. It's like a node implementation of the DOM. We can use it to test browser things.
Exactly. We can run tests, or we can run tests without running a browser, which is a good, yeah.
Without ever having to spin up a browser, which is.
You can run tests without even spin out a browser. Which is a good thing in terms of speed, which is a good thing since they are very slow.
Very slow. If you want to do that, you can use something like Playwright or Puppeteer.
Exactly. If you want to do that, you can use Puppeteer, Playwright. You can use Playwright or Puppeteer. Okay, so Playwright here, Playwright. Okay, but all of those end-to-end testings are flag error. chosen by companies like this. Playwright. With native mobile emulation or Google Chrome, Android, or mobile Safari. Again, this is if you want to run some tests for them. And they're gonna give you is all of this. If all of those tests are actually running in that. Running the example in test UI mode, when you want to run this particular test, or want to test a user flow, the UX flow from when the user logging and when what happened after that. System requirements no 18 or greater. Interesting, very, very interesting. Totally.
To do that, totally valid. What Happy DOM is, it's like a
or Puppeteer. So what Happy DOM is a lightweight version of GS DOM.
minimalistic version of JS DOM, so we don't have to spin up a browser. We can just test everything inside of Node. My advice for you is, for most things, use Happy DOM. It's small and fast.
My advice for you, use Happy DOM for most of the time. Is fast, okay, and small.
It's not a total complete DOM like JS DOM is, but it is much faster.
It is not a total complete GS DOM. Exactly. It is not total complete DOM like GS DOM, but is much faster. And again, as a software engineer, our time is
so if Happy DOM
precious.
works, use Happy DOM. If it doesn't, then use JS DOM. And then as far as like Puppeteer and Playwright, my suggestion to you about like those full-featured browser environments is have like a few important tests that you run inside of those, and then that's it. Those end-to-end tests are expensive, they're flaky, and so make sure that you're testing really important things. Don't just go willy-nilly on the end-to-end testing. That's just my methodology of testing. Coming from someone that does not like to write tests. If you like writing tests, then by all means tell me to heck off. Okay, so test. We're going to write a function here called test, and it's going to run some Vitest for us. We don't have to be any more specific than that. Testing. Those end-to-end tests are expensive, they're browser. Happy DOM works, use Happy DOM. If it doesn't, then use JS DOM. And then as far as like Puppeteer and Playwright, my suggestion to you about like those full-featured browser environments.
Because it's like that. So Playwright in Puppeteer, those fully fledged testing environment. Okay, Playwright and Puppeteer, those fully fledged. Yeah, those fully fledged testing environments. Okay, those fully fledged testing environments are good for doing end-to-end testing.
Environments is have like a few important tests that you run inside of those, and then that's it. Those end-to-end tests are expensive, they're flaky, and so make sure that you're testing.
So they are meant to test something that is relevant. Perhaps a login. Login and authentication. Okay, login and off, which is most of the time what causes a lot of pain. Okay. They're meant to test something that is really relevant, perhaps a login and an auth, because those tests are flaky, expensive, because those tests are expensive and flaky, flaky.
A few important tests that you run inside of those, and then that's it. Those end-to-end tests are expensive, they're flaky, and so make sure that you're testing really important things. Don't just go willy-nilly on the end-to-end testing. That's just my methodology of testing. Coming from someone that does not like to write tests. If you like writing tests, then by all means tell me to heck off. Okay, so test. We're going to write a function here called test, and
Okay.
it's going to run some Vitest for us. We don't have to be any more specific than that. That is it. Fun little.
So let's go into now. No.
Trick now, you can write npm run test, right? Or npm run t. Or if you're extra lazy like me, npm t will run npm test for you. Oh, am I in the... I bet you I have to do this again. Now npm t is going to say, hey, you don't have any tests. I don't know what to do about that. So that's what you should see. But yeah, fun fact, npm t does npm run test for you. I use that all the time. Okay, one little thing to add to your Vite config. Just in here, write a little test thing, and then you just want to give it an environment
Which is the
of
GS
Happy DOM. By default,
Happy
it's
DOM.
going to use JS DOM, which is much slower. I like Happy DOM, it's much faster. I like fast tests. Therefore, I'm going to teach you how to write faster tests. All right, so now we are ready to go. We're ready to officially start writing tests. So we're going to write a test for pet.jsx.
Okay. Good. Good to go. So now let's go to the code. And here we go. That's right. Here we are. Let's go to stop here for a moment. I think that we are now on which project? Which project is this? That's a good question. You know.
Just kidding, it's not. TypeScript is definitely the hardest one yet. Maybe Redux. I don't know. That one's kind of up to you. It's not this one, though. All right. We're going to talk about testing. And I'm going to tell you why I'm a really good person to learn testing from. Because I don't like test. By default, it's going to use do need to test like the implementation, test my new errors, or changing the code, guaranteeing myself that I fixed the bug. And I also get to leave a test behind so that regression flaky. Even the best fix it. One of the two. Your tests, and then you would write. You can disagree with me, and you can see.
Okay.
But yeah, fun fact: npmt does npm run test for you. I use that all the time. JS DOM, which is much.
Okay. So now we have to indicate to Vite, hey, this is now the test environment that we need to set up. Why is that? Because we want to run tests. I like fast. I like to run fast tests. So here we say the environment. I mean it's test. Sorry. I think it's test. No. Interesting. Okay, doesn't tell me, no problem. But it's test. I want you to say the environment here. Environment is the Happy DOM. The Happy DOM. We haven't installed that, so we need to actually indicate that npm install in our development environment. The Vitest we are using a specific version of it, okay, which is 0.24, major version 0, minor version 24, bug fix 3, as well as the testing library, this bunch of nice, convenient helpers, utility tool for testing React components. Before that, we have, this is now the replacement of something called Ensign, which was developed by Airbnb, because before that we don't have any way of testing a React component, and that was a pain in the ass, a truly pain in the ass. I'm glad that's not away from us. Uh, and that's what we are going to use here, which is this testing library, which means that this is the as symbol indicates that this is part of the organization npm package or a group of packages that are under this namespace, under this organization. Okay. Testing library with React. This is slash React. Add a particular version here, 13.4.0, major version 13, minor forks, bug fix 0, and the environment. Then we're gonna run our test, which is happy done. This is a no implementation of the DOM, which is a more minimalistic and lightweight version of GSDOM. This is not fully completed as GSDOM, but it's much faster. And I like to write tests that are faster. Okay. As well as this is the version, major version 7, minor version 6, and bug fix 0. So after we install all of these particular libraries for React components in React 18 version as a way to write production grade React applications, okay, it throws us with an error and say, hey, what the heck is this? Okay. Oh, of course. He didn't recognize this pattern here. Now you do. Okay. So npm is smart enough to tell me, hey, what the f is this? I'm looking at my register, but I don't have anything like this. Can you double check that? Okay. So all of these changes are, in fact, let me actually do is this. Okay. So let me add is the adopted slice, as well as pet API, as well as search patterns, as well as search patterns here in the store, the user bread list, that kind of thing. Okay. All of these are for Redux, exactly. Redux. So adding Redux RT key store and service. We can create is now a project here. So for example, here we can create a new repo for that. When we say, hey, this is a new way of doing this. This is the Redux RTK 2024 test. React RTK 2024 test. Okay, we can make it this public, no problem. No readme, not at all, because we already have that readme here. No. Oh, we didn't have that. Okay. Okay. And there you got it. So create the repo. That's right. This is the another origin that we need to connect, or that we like to connect. We just git add remote, git remote, add URL, helper here. Git remote add, exactly the name of the branch, master. Okay. T the branch, master, and the name of the URL. Okay, this is the parameter that we received. Give remote add. This will be called RTK repo. Okay. The name as well as the URL, which is this. And then I want you to now git push origin or git push RTK repo, the main branch. And then we got it. We're supposed to have already this one. Oh, we already push all of that. Interesting. I didn't want to do that. Not at all. Oh, because I need to actually, okay, get in it here. No problem. No problem. Exactly. React. React tailwind. Okay. Test repo of React core concept. Okay. TypeScript. Server-side rendering, code splitting, test repo of React core concept, TypeScript, server-side rendering, code splitting, Redux, and testing. That basically is this one. Exactly. From that, exactly. All right. So, yeah. That's right. Okay. So what I'm doing here is just to be in another repo here. Set these things up in another repo. Okay. Um, do, 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 do. Can how can I delete the repo here? I can delete a repo? Bullshit. Okay, in settings here. Okay. I want is to delete that. Pull request, then your song, change visibility, delete this repo. Yep. Exactly. It's also making, you know, it's like, are you sure that you want to delete this repo? And in the case of GitHub is saying, hey, you want to do that? Hmm. Perfect. GitHub 44655. There you got it. Okay. Let me create a new repo here right now with this name. Okay. And this is what it is about. Test. We have core concept and Redux. RTK, Redux Toolkit, as well as query, RTK query in 2024. Okay. There you got it. That's right. Add Redux. Exactly. Add Redux, store, slice, and services. There you got it. Okie dokie. So git remote add the name of a repo, which will be we can remove the git remote remove Okay. Exactly. So remote, git remote remove if rtk rtk. Okay, git remote get url all. Or what if I want to take a look at all of them? Git branch uh, with a flag a. No, git branch a. Is it, there's only master web? Git log. Exactly. Let's say git branch, git remote, git remote. Okay, git remote, git add, git rename. All okay. Git remote rename. The old one is rtk. We can say git add. Okay, git add, git remote add origin. Okay, with this like so. Then you got it. And now you can do is this git push origin to main, to master. Okay, much better. Much better. Okay, cool, cool, totally, totally. This is exactly what I want to do. Exactly. Cool, cool. And now that we are running is Vite here.
So we're going to write a test for pet.js. So here's some just high-level Brian Holt thinks about testing kind of stuff. Try to test functionality, not implementation, which is to say, like, don't test that the hook has the correct value in it. Test the user interface is working the way that a user.
Exactly. So, so value proposition of testing. Okay. Test functionality, not implementation. Exactly. Test functionality, not implementation.
Not implementation, which is to say, like, don't test that the hook has the correct value in it. Test the user interface is working the way that a user would expect.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Don't test. That's one of the reasons why a lot of company and people that work on those company actually haven't quite. They're having troubles of wrap around their mind around this. Don't test the correct value of hooks. Test the user interface working. Test the user interface is working as expected.
In other words, try and approach your test like a user approaches your application.
Okay. Try to approach your test like the user approach to your application. And I love this particular vision here, which is what is the value proposition of test. It's like test your write your test like the user will test your app. Okay. So try to approach your test like the user approach to your application. Write your test like your user, uh, like a user tests your application.
If I click a button, I see the thing that I want. Those kind of things. Like try and tell user stories through your test.
Mm-hmm. Try to write user stories through tests.
Not always possible. Sometimes you do need to test like the implementation details.
Not always possible.
But like doing things like extensive spying and mocking and things like
Exactly. Not always possible, but doing intensive mock and spying and things like that.
that generally I don't like because
Exactly. But doing intensive mock and spying generally make your test brittle.
as soon as I want to change the implementation of something to do the same action but a better way,
Exactly. In other words, okay, when I change the implementations to do in another fashion for a better way,
I don't want to have to go change all my tests to test my new implementation.
I don't want to test. I don't want to go and change my test. I don't want to go and change my test to test new implementation. Implementation.
I don't care if my implementation changes. I care if user stories break.
I don't care if my implementation change. I just care that my user story breaks. And that makes a lot of sense because, again, this is part of the value proposition from Brian Hall. Try to write tests like the user approach to your app.
That's probably better.
Hey, if I do a clip, what happened next?
Every UI I've ever worked on changes all the time, right? We're shipping new headers, we're changing the colors, we're moving the button. Try not to test the UI.
Okay. Try not to test the UI. Brian Holt mentioned that any time, every company he had work on, the UI always change. The color, the button, the color, the button, the header size.
If the UI changes, it doesn't mean it broke, it just means it changed, right? So I try not to do that. A fun way of fixing bugs when I can't figure out, like I'm having trouble fixing a bug, is I'll write a test that fails because of that bug, and then I'll try and fix it until that test pass. That has the benefit of guaranteeing myself that I fixed the bug, and I also get to leave a test behind so that that regression doesn't happen again. Until that test pass, that has the benefit of guaranteeing myself that I fixed the bug, and I also get to, because of that bug, and then I'll try and fix it until that test pass. That has the benefit of guaranteeing myself that I'll write it. I try not to do that. A fun way of fixing bugs when I can't figure out, like I'm having trouble fixing a bug, is
Okay. Trying not to test the UI. Exactly. Only the user story. Try to approach your test like the user approach your app. User story through test. Try to write user story through test. Try not to test the UI.
I'll write a test that fails because of that bug, and then I'll try and fix it until that test passes. That has the benefit of guaranteeing myself that I fixed the bug, and I also get to leave a test behind so that that regression doesn't happen again. So that's a lot of my tests come from that. You should be deleting tests on a regular basis.
Trying to fix a bug.
Test behind so that regression doesn't happen again. So that's a lot of my tests come from that. You should be deleting tests on and I also get to leave a test of that bug. A fun way of fixing bugs when I can't figure out if I'm having trouble fixing a bug is I'll write it.
Okay. Trying to fixing a bug is to write a test that failed.
Test that fails because of that bug.
It's to try to write a test that failed because of the bug.
And then I'll try and fix it until that test passes. That has the benefit.
And then try to fix it.
Of guaranteeing myself that I fixed the bug, and I also get to leave a test behind so that that regression doesn't happen again.
So trying to fix a bug is to write a test that failed because of the bugs, and then try to fix it. So trying to fixing a bug is to write a test that failed because of the bugs, and then try to fix it. The benefits: you wrote a test to fix that bug and
fix it until that test passes. That has the benefit of guaranteeing myself that I fixed the bug, and I also get to leave a test behind so that that.
The benefits: you'll guarantee you'll guarantee to run a test. Okay, you'll guarantee to run a test to fix that bug, or you'll guarantee to write. You'll guarantee, or you guarantee. You guarantee to wrote a test that fix that bug. You guarantee to write a test that fix that bug.
Regression, and then I'll try and fix it until that test passes. That has the benefit of guaranteeing myself that I fixed the bug.
So the benefits: you guarantee that that bug was fixed.
And I also get to leave a test behind.
So you guarantee that that bug was fixed, and also leave a test. And leave a test behind.
Regression doesn't happen.
And leave a test behind, so regression doesn't happen. And I think this is especially for bug fix. Okay.
Again. So that's a lot of my tests come from that. You should be deleting tests on a regular basis. You should get into the habit of deleting tests. If you have bad tests, if you have old tests, deleting.
You should have the. Okay. You should be.
You should be deleting tests on a regular basis.
You should be. on a regular basis. All tests.
You should get into the habit of deleting tests. If you have bad tests, if you have old,
You should be deleting all the tests. Okay, you must develop the habit of deleting tests. You must develop the habit of deleting tests.
deleting tests should be something that you think about.
Okay.
And then fix or delete flaky tests. The only flaky test
Or delete flaky tests. Except for end-to-end testing.
I tolerate is something like Puppeteer or something like that, or Playwright, where I'm like testing if a user clicks here, fills in these forms, clicks submit, goes here, clicks this, fills this in, and like I'm testing the entire user flow. It's just flaky. Even the best software, even in the best of time.
Exactly.
It's a flaky, like Selenium kind of environment. It's still worth it because testing that your user can log in and pay their bill or something like that, it's worth a flaky test to be able to guarantee yourself that that's going to happen. Everything else, if it's flaky, delete it or fix it. One of the two. Okay, that makes sense. That's my high level what I think about tests. I think it's pretty reasonable. I've arrived at that over years of, like I used to work at a company where they did full TDD, right? You would write all of your tests and then you would write, the code to fulfill all of your tests. I think it's unnecessary. I think it's unnecessarily slow, and I don't think you get any benefit from it.
TDD is slow and sometimes and quite unnecessary. According to Brian Holt.
So you can disagree with me and you can just be wrong. It's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm joking for the most part. There's definitely people that would disagree with me.
Okay. So, well, that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye-bye.